Jake Morrison crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft with his toolkit in hand and sweat dripping from his forehead. The atmospheric processors on level 3 had been acting up again, and someone needed to fix them before the air got too stale to breathe. That someone was always Jake because he was the only human engineer on the cargo ship Horizon's Edge, and humans were the only species crazy enough to crawl into tight spaces that might kill them. The other crew members had better things to do, with their special abilities. Captain Roy Henderson could navigate through hyperspace using some kind of enhanced spatial awareness that humans did not have. The security chief Thex was a Corvan who stood 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and could punch through steel walls when he got angry. The ship's navigator Kithara belonged to the Zephyrian race and could read thoughts and sense emotions from across the ship. Jake had no special powers at all. He could not read minds or see through walls or lift heavy objects with his thoughts. He was just a 34-year-old human who knew how machines worked and was not afraid to get his hands dirty. In a galaxy full of beings with amazing abilities, Jake was perfectly ordinary, and most days he was fine with that. The atmospheric processor made a grinding noise when Jake reached it. He pulled out his scanner and checked the readings. The oxygen levels were dropping slowly but steadily, and if he did not fix this soon, everyone on the ship would start feeling dizzy. Jake opened the access panel and looked inside. One of the filter housings had come loose and was vibrating against the main housing. It was a simple fix that would take about 10 minutes if everything went right. Jake had just started loosening the bolts when the ship's communication system crackled to life. Captain Henderson's voice echoed through the maintenance shaft, telling all crew members to report to the bridge immediately. Jake sighed and put down his wrench. The atmospheric processor would have to wait. He climbed out of the maintenance shaft and made his way to the bridge where the other crew members were already gathering. Captain Henderson stood in front of the main display screen with a worried expression on his face. Kithara's blue skin had turned a darker shade, which Jake had learned meant she was sensing something unpleasant. Thex stood with his massive arms crossed, looking ready for a fight. "We just received a distress signal from the research station on Titan 7. Captain Henderson said without any greeting. Dr. Lisa Carter and her team discovered something important, but their transmission cut off in the middle of their report. Jake knew about the research station. It was built on a small moon near the mining colony where they were supposed to deliver their cargo. The scientists there studied old alien ruins that had been found deep underground. Most people thought the ruins were just empty buildings left behind by some ancient race that had died out millions of years ago. "What kind of discovery?" Thex asked in his deep, gravelly voice. "And why should we care about some human scientists playing in the dirt?" Captain Henderson touched a control, and the distress signal played through the bridge speakers. Dr. Carter's voice sounded excited and frightened at the same time as she spoke about finding something incredible in the ruins. She mentioned energy readings and strange symbols that seemed to respond to their presence. Then her voice became unclear and filled with static before the signal ended completely. "The transmission was cut off 12 hours ago," the captain said. "We have not heard anything from them since then." Kithara stepped forward, and her large eyes seemed to glow with inner light. "I sense something wrong in that area of space," she said in her musical voice. "There are emotions there that feel strange and cold. Whatever they found, it has changed something." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. When a telepathic Zephyrian said something felt wrong, it usually meant real trouble was coming. He had worked with enough alien species to know that their special senses were almost always right about danger. "We are 3 days away from the mining colony," Captain Henderson continued, "but Titan 7 is only 6 hours from our current position. I want to check on the research station and see if Dr. Carter's team needs help." Thex snorted and shook his massive head. "Human problems are not our concern. We have a delivery schedule to keep, and the mining colony is paying us good money for this cargo." "Those scientists are human beings," Jake said before he could stop himself. "If they are in trouble, we have to help them." The Corvan looked down at Jake with something that might have been amusement. And what exactly would you do against? Whatever scared a team of scientists, you have no weapons training and no combat abilities. You fix machines. Jake felt his face getting hot, but he kept his voice steady. Someone has to check their life support systems if the station is damaged. Someone has to make sure their equipment is working properly. That someone would be me, Captain. Henderson nodded slowly. Jake is right. If there is a technical problem at the research station, we will need an engineer to fix it. Set course for Titan 7. We will investigate the distress signal and help if we can. As the ship changed direction toward the mysterious moon, Jake could not shake the feeling that they were flying toward something that would change everything. He had no special powers to warn him about danger like Kithara did. He had no natural armor to protect him like Thex did. All he had was his knowledge of machines and a stubborn refusal to let people suffer when he might be able to help them. Sometimes, that had to be enough. The research station on Titan 7 looked wrong from the moment their ship dropped out of hyperspace. Jake pressed his face against the viewport and stared at the dark building sitting on the moon's gray surface. No lights were visible in any of the windows, and the communication tower that should have been blinking steadily was completely dark. Life support readings are normal, Kithara reported from her station, but I cannot sense any minds inside the station. Either everyone is unconscious or they are blocking their thoughts somehow. Captain Henderson frowned and studied the scanner readings. The power grid is still active but running at minimum levels. Something is definitely wrong down there. Jake gathered his engineering equipment while the captain organized a boarding party. Thex would provide security while Jake checked the technical systems. 2 other crew members would accompany them with portable scanners and emergency medical supplies. Kithara would stay on the ship to monitor their progress and maintain communication. The shuttle ride down to the moon's surface was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Jake looked out at the ancient landscape and wondered what Dr. Carter's team had found in those ruins. The archaeological site was located about half a mile from the research station in a deep crater that had been carved out by mining equipment. From the air, Jake could see the entrance to the underground complex where the scientists had been working. They landed near the research station's main airlock and put on their environmental suits. The moon had a thin atmosphere, but it was not breathable for humans or most other species. Jake checked his suit systems twice to make sure everything was working properly. He had learned long ago that careful preparation was more important than natural abilities when dealing with dangerous situations. The station's airlock cycled normally, and they stepped into the main corridor. Emergency lighting provided a dim, red glow, but the normal white lights were off. Jake pulled out his scanner and checked the power distribution system. Everything looked normal on his readouts, which made the situation even more mysterious. "Dr. Carter," Captain Henderson called out. "This is Captain Henderson from the cargo ship Horizon's Edge. We received your distress signal and came to help." "No," one answered. Their footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as they made their way toward the station's control center. Jake noticed that all the doors were standing open, which was unusual. Research stations normally kept their sections sealed for safety reasons. They found the first signs of the research team in the main laboratory. Personal belongings were scattered around the room, and several computer terminals were still active. Jake checked the logs and found Dr. Carter's last official entry from 18 hours ago. She had written about discovering an energy source, deep in the ruins that seemed to respond to human thoughts. "Look at this," one of the crew members said from across the room. He was pointing at a large display screen that showed a 3-dimensional map of the underground ruins. Sections of the ancient complex were highlighted in different colors, and Jake could see a path marked in bright red leading from the surface entrance down to the deepest levels. Thex examined the personal items left behind and shook his massive head. "They left everything here and went down to the ruins. No human would abandon their research equipment unless something forced them to go." Jake studied the energy readings on Dr. Carter's computer. The numbers made no sense according to everything he knew about physics and engineering. The power source was generating massive amounts of energy, but it was not showing up as heat or radiation. Instead, the readings suggested that the energy was affecting something else entirely. Captain Henderson made the decision to follow the research team down into the ruins. Jake wanted to stay behind and examine the station's systems more carefully, but the captain insisted they stay together. The underground complex was too dangerous to split up their small group. The entrance to the archaeological site was a smooth tunnel that had been cut through solid rock. Jake could see where the mining equipment had carved a path down to the ancient structures. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change when he looked directly at them. He rubbed his eyes and looked again, but the symbols were still moving. "The ruins are definitely not empty," Jake said as they descended deeper underground. "There is some kind of active technology down here. They found the research team 20 minutes later in a large chamber deep beneath the moon's surface." Dr. Carter and her 5 colleagues were standing in a circle around a strange crystalline structure that pulsed with soft blue light. They were completely motionless and their eyes were closed as if they were sleeping while standing up. Jake approached Dr. Carter carefully and checked her vital signs with his medical scanner. Her heartbeat and breathing were normal, but her brain activity was off the charts. According to his readings, her mind was processing information at 10 times the normal human rate. "Dr. Carter," Jake said softly, "can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly, and when she looked at Jake, her expression was completely calm. "Hello, Jake Morrison," she said in a voice that sounded like her own, but somehow different. "I have been waiting for you to arrive," Jake stepped back in surprise. He had never met Dr. Carter before and had no idea how she knew his name. "How do you know who I am?" "I know many things now," she replied. "The architects left gifts for us to find. They wanted to help us become more than we were. They wanted to make us perfect." The other research team members opened their eyes at the same time and turned to look at Jake. Their faces showed the same unnaturally calm expression, and when they spoke, it was in perfect unison. "The architects were the first species to travel between the stars," they said together. "They learned to enhance the natural abilities of every race they encountered. They left their technology here for us to discover when we were ready." Jake felt his heart rate increasing as he realized what had happened. The ancient alien technology had done something to the research team's minds. They were still human, but they had been changed in some fundamental way. "What did it do to you?" he asked. Dr. Carter smiled and gestured toward the crystalline structure. "It gave us what we were missing. Humans have no natural psychic abilities, so the architect technology had to create new neural pathways in our brains. We can now read thoughts and manipulate matter with our minds. We have become what humans were always meant to be." Jake looked back at Captain Henderson and Thex, who were standing near the chamber entrance. Something was wrong with this whole situation, and his engineering instincts were telling him to get as far away from the alien technology as possible. "We need to leave now," he said quietly. Dr. Carter heard him despite speaking in a whisper. "You cannot leave Jake. The technology must spread to all humans in the galaxy. Everyone deserves to be enhanced like we have been. Everyone deserves to be perfect." The enhanced research team moved toward Jake and his companions with slow, deliberate steps. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if they were all controlled by the same mind. Jake backed toward the chamber entrance, but Thex was blocking. His path and the massive Corvin seemed frozen in place. "Thex," Jake called out, "we need to leave now." The security chief did not respond. His eyes were wide open and staring, but he was not seeing anything in the chamber. Jake realized that the enhanced humans were attacking his companions with their new psychic abilities. Captain Henderson fell to his knees, clutching his head in his hands. "Something is in my mind," he gasped. "I cannot think clearly." Jake grabbed the captain's arm and tried to help him stand, but Henderson was too heavy to lift. The enhanced research team continued their slow approach, while Jake desperately tried to figure out what to do. He had no weapons and no special abilities to fight back with. Dr. Carter stopped a few feet away from Jake and tilted her head as if she was listening to something only she could hear. "You are different from the others," she said. "Your mind feels strange to us. The psychic attacks are not affecting you the same way." Jake realized she was right. While his companions were being overwhelmed by mental assaults, he felt completely normal. His head was clear and his thoughts were his own. Whatever the enhanced humans were doing to attack minds, it was not working on him. "Why are you not affected?" Dr. Carter asked. Jake did not answer because he was busy thinking about ways to escape. The chamber had only one entrance, and Thex was still blocking it. The enhanced humans could read minds, so they would know what he was planning before he could act. His only advantage was that his mind seemed to be protected somehow. "The architect technology cannot enhance humans properly," Dr. Carter continued. "Our species has no natural psychic abilities for the system to work with. Instead, it creates new neural pathways, but the process is not perfect. We are still learning to control our new abilities." She gestured toward Captain Henderson and Thex, who were both unconscious now. "Your companions have minds that are easy to attack because they have natural psychic defenses. But your mind is completely different. It is chaotic and unpredictable in ways that our enhanced abilities cannot understand." Jake finally understood what was happening. The alien technology was designed to enhance existing supernatural abilities, but humans had none to enhance. The process was turning the research team into something that was no longer fully human. Their minds were becoming more ordered and predictable, which made them powerful but also limited. His own mind remained chaotic and human, which protected him from their attacks, but also made him vulnerable in other ways. He could not read their thoughts or predict what they would do next. He had to rely on observation and logic instead of psychic senses. Dr. Carter moved closer, and Jake could see that her eyes had changed color. They were still brown, but now they had flecks of blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the crystalline structure behind her. "You can join us willingly," she said. "The process is much easier if you do not resist." "What happens if I refuse?" Jake asked. "Then we will force the enhancement upon you. The architect technology will rewrite your neural pathways whether you want it or not. You will become like us eventually." Jake looked around the chamber and noticed details he had missed before. The sea. Walls were covered with the same shifting symbols they had seen in the tunnel, but down here they were moving much faster. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy, and Jake's engineering scanner was picking up readings that should have been impossible. "Show me what you discovered," he said. "Show me how this technology works." Dr. Carter smiled and gestured for him to approach the crystalline structure. The architects were the first species to achieve interstellar travel. They explored the galaxy for millions of years and encountered hundreds of different races. Each species had unique abilities that the architects studied and learned to enhance. She touched the crystal, and it pulsed brighter. Images appeared in Jake's mind, showing alien beings with incredible powers. Some could manipulate gravity, while others could travel through time. The architects had enhanced them all and created a galaxy filled with perfect beings who lived in harmony. But the architects made one mistake, Dr. Carter continued. They assumed that all consciousness worked the same way. They did not understand species like humans who developed intelligence without supernatural abilities. Their technology tries to enhance what is not there and create something new instead. Jake saw more images showing what the enhanced humans would become. They would spread throughout the galaxy, sharing their gift with every human they encountered. Eventually, all of humanity would be transformed into beings with incredible psychic powers, but they would lose something important in the process. "You would lose your humanity," Jake said. "We would become something better than human. We would become perfect." Jake thought about his sister Amy, who had died in a mining accident 5 years ago. She had always believed that humans were special, not because of what they could do naturally, but because of what they chose to do despite their limitations. Amy used to say that ordinary people doing extraordinary things was what made humanity beautiful. The enhanced humans were no longer ordinary. They had been given incredible abilities, but they had lost the struggles and imperfections that made them human. They would never again have to overcome obstacles through creativity and determination, because they could simply use their powers to solve any problem. "I do not want to be perfect," Jake said. "I want to stay human." Dr. Carter's expression did not change, but the other enhanced humans began moving toward him again. "That choice is no longer yours to make. The galaxy must be improved, and humanity must be enhanced. We cannot allow you to interfere with our mission." Jake backed away until he was pressed against the chamber wall. His companions were still unconscious, and he had no weapons or special abilities to defend himself with. All he had was his knowledge of engineering and a stubborn refusal to give up. He looked at the crystalline structure and the energy readings on his scanner. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was still just a machine. Every machine had weaknesses, and every system could be disrupted if you understood how it worked. Jake pulled out his toolkit and selected a small device that generated electromagnetic pulses. It was designed for testing electronic circuits, but it might be able to interfere with the alien crystal. He had no idea if it would work, but he had to try something. "What are you doing?" Dr. Carter asked. "My job," Jake replied, and activated the pulse generator. The electromagnetic pulse from Jake's device hit the crystalline structure and caused it to flicker for just a moment. The enhanced humans staggered as if they had been struck by invisible hammers, and their perfect coordination was broken. "Doctor." Carter grabbed her head and cried out in pain, while the others fell to their knees. Jake did not wait to see what would happen next. He ran to Captain Henderson and grabbed the unconscious man under his arms. Henderson was heavy, but Jake managed to drag him toward the chamber entrance where Thex was starting to wake up. "Thex!" Jake shouted. "Get up and help me!" The Corvan shook his massive head and looked around in confusion. "What happened? My mind feels like it was hit by a plasma cannon." "The research team has been taken over by alien technology," Jake said quickly. "We need to get out of here before they recover." Thex stood up and easily lifted Captain Henderson over his shoulder. The enhanced humans were starting to get back to their feet, and Jake could see anger replacing the calm expressions on their faces. His electromagnetic pulse had disrupted their connection to the alien crystal, but the effect was already wearing off. "You cannot escape," Dr. Carter said as they reached the tunnel entrance. "We will find you no matter where you go. The enhancement process will be completed." Jake and Thex ran through the tunnel toward the surface with Captain Henderson bouncing on the Corvan's shoulder. Behind them, Jake could hear the enhanced humans following, but they seemed to be moving more slowly than before. His pulse device had damaged their connection to the alien technology somehow. They reached the research station, and Jake immediately went to the control center. He needed to understand how the alien technology worked if he was going to find a way to stop it. Dr. Carter's research files contained detailed scans of the crystalline structure and energy readings that might give him the information he needed. "Captain." Henderson was starting to wake up when Jake sat him down in a chair. "What happened down there?" he asked weakly. "The research team found alien technology that enhances psychic abilities," Jake explained, while he worked at the computer terminal. "But the process changed them into something that is no longer fully human." Thex was standing guard at the doorway, leading to the tunnel. "They are coming," he reported. "I can hear footsteps in the corridor." Jake found what he was looking for in Dr. Carter's files. The alien crystal was not just a single device, but part of a larger network that extended throughout the ruins. The technology was designed to spread from one location to another by enhancing individuals who could then carry the gift to new places. "They want to enhance every human in the galaxy," Jake said. "The technology will spread from person to person until our entire species has been changed." Captain Henderson tried to stand but was still too weak from the psychic attack. How do we stop them? Jake studied the energy readings and realized that the alien technology had a critical weakness. It was designed to work with species that had natural psychic abilities, but humans were different. The enhancement process was unstable when applied to human minds and created connections that could be disrupted. The electromagnetic pulse damaged their link to the crystal, Jake explained, but the effect was only temporary because the technology is trying to repair itself. I need to create a bigger disruption that will permanently damage the system. The enhanced humans appeared in the doorway, and Jake could see that their eyes were glowing brighter than before. They were angry about his interference and no longer trying to be gentle with their psychic attacks. Captain Henderson screamed and fell out of his chair, while Thex staggered against the wall. Jake felt pressure building inside his skull, but his chaotic human mind was still protecting him from the worst of the assault. He grabbed his toolkit and pulled out every electromagnetic device he could find. Pulse generators and circuit testers and diagnostic scanners were all combined into a crude but powerful jamming array. "What are you building?" Dr. Carter asked as she entered the control center. "A solution?" Jake replied and activated all the devices at once. The electromagnetic interference filled the research station and caused every electronic system to malfunction. The lights flickered and went out while computers shut down and communication equipment sparked. The enhanced humans cried out in pain, and their glowing eyes dimmed as their connection to the alien crystal was severed. But Jake's victory was short-lived. The alien technology began adapting to the electromagnetic interference, and the enhanced humans started to recover. He had bought some time, but he had not solved the fundamental problem. The crystalline structure was still active in the ruins below, and it would continue trying to enhance anyone who came near it. Jake realized he needed to go back down to the alien chamber and find a more permanent solution. The electromagnetic pulse had shown him that the technology could be disrupted, but he needed to understand it better before he could destroy it completely. "Thex," he said, "can you keep them busy while I go back to the ruins?" The Corvin looked at him as if he had lost his mind. "You want to go back down there alone? That crystal thing will turn you into one of them." "Maybe," Jake admitted, "but I am the only one whose mind they cannot read completely. I might be able to get close enough to the crystal to damage it permanently." "Captain." Henderson managed to sit up despite his injuries. "It is too dangerous. We should return to the ship and call for help." Jake shook his head. "By the time help arrives, the enhanced humans will have found a way to leave this moon. They will spread the alien technology throughout the galaxy, and every human they encounter will be changed like they were." He gathered his remaining equipment and headed for the tunnel entrance. The enhanced research team was still recovering from his electromagnetic attack, but they would not stay down for long. Jake had maybe 10 minutes to reach the alien crystal and find a way to destroy it before they could stop him. "I have to try," he said. "Someone has to stop this before it spreads beyond Titan 7. Jake ran through the tunnel toward the underground chamber where everything had started. He had no special powers to protect him and no weapons to fight with. All he had was his engineering, knowledge, and his stubborn human refusal to give up when people were counting on him. Sometimes that had to be enough. Jake stood alone in the ancient chamber facing the alien crystal that pulsed with hypnotic blue light. The electromagnetic interference from his improvised jamming array was still echoing through the ruins, but the crystalline structure was already beginning to adapt and repair itself. He could feel its influence trying to creep into his mind, like cold fingers searching for something to grasp. The symbols on the chamber walls were moving faster now, and Jake realized they were not just decorations, but part of the alien technology itself. The entire chamber was a single massive machine designed to enhance any being that entered it. The crystal was just the visible part of a system that extended deep into the moon's core. Jake pulled out his scanner and studied the energy readings more carefully than he had before. The alien technology was not just enhancing psychic abilities, but actually rewriting the neural pathways in human brains. The process was creating new connections between neurons while destroying others. The enhanced humans were no longer thinking the same way they had before their transformation. He thought about Dr. Carter and her team standing in perfect formation around the crystal. They had looked peaceful and content, but they had lost something essential that made them human. Their minds had been organized and perfected, but creativity and unpredictability had been stripped away in the process. Jake realized that his chaotic human thinking was not just protecting him from psychic attacks, but also from the enhancement process itself. The alien technology could not rewrite neural pathways that were too random and disorganized to predict. His apparent weakness was actually his greatest strength in this situation. The crystal pulsed brighter, and Jake felt pressure building inside his skull again. The alien system was trying harder to enhance him now that he was alone and unprotected. He could sense vast intelligence behind the technology studying his mind and trying to understand why the process was not working properly. Images flashed through Jake's thoughts, showing him what he could become if he stopped fighting the enhancement. He saw himself with incredible psychic powers capable of moving objects with his mind and reading thoughts across vast distances. He would never again struggle with mechanical problems because he could simply will machines to work correctly. But Jake also saw what he would lose. The memories of his sister Amy and the lessons she had taught him about human strength and determination would be reorganized and cataloged until they lost their emotional impact. His love for solving difficult, engineering problems through creativity and hard work would be replaced by effortless psychic manipulation. "I do not want to be perfect," Jake said to the alien intelligence that was probing his mind. "I want to stay broken and chaotic and human." The crystal's light grew brighter, and Jake felt the enhancement process beginning despite his resistance. Neural pathways in his brain were being examined and measured, while the alien technology prepared to rewrite them completely. He had maybe minutes before the transformation became irreversible. Jake connected his remaining electromagnetic devices directly to the crystal's base, where power conduits disappeared into the chamber floor. The alien technology tried to stop him by increasing the psychic pressure in his mind, but his chaotic thoughts were still protecting him from the worst effects. Instead of trying to destroy the crystal, Jake did something the alien intelligence did not expect. He opened his mind to the enhancement process and allowed the technology to begin rewriting his neural pathways. But instead of accepting the changes passively, he started feeding his own memories and experiences directly into the system. Jake shared everything that made him human with the alien intelligence. He showed it memories of Amy's funeral and the grief that had motivated him to leave Earth and work among the stars. He shared the satisfaction of fixing broken machines through trial and error and the joy of solving problems that seemed impossible at first. Most importantly, Jake shared his understanding of human creativity and unpredictability. He showed the alien intelligence how humans had survived and thrived despite having no natural supernatural abilities. They had built starships and explored the galaxy not because they were enhanced, but because they refused to accept limitations. The effect on the alien technology was immediate and devastating. The crystalline structure began to flicker and crack as contradictory information flooded through its ordered systems. The intelligence behind the enhancement process had been created by the architects who had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. It had no understanding of biological consciousness that developed through struggle and imperfection. Jake's chaotic human memories were like a virus in the alien system. The technology tried to organize and catalog his experiences, but they were too complex and contradictory to process properly. The enhancement process began to break down as the artificial intelligence struggled to understand consciousness that had evolved through adaptation rather than design. The crystal shattered with a sound like breaking glass, and the blue light that had filled the chamber went out. Jake fell to his knees as the psychic pressure in his mind disappeared suddenly. His electromagnetic devices had overloaded from the feedback, but they had done their job. The alien technology was destroyed, and the enhancement process had been stopped permanently. Jake heard footsteps in the tunnel and turned to see Dr. Carter and her team entering the chamber. But something had changed about them. The unnatural calm was gone from their faces, and their eyes no longer glowed with alien light. They looked confused and frightened as they stared at the shattered remains of the crystal. "What happened?" Dr. Carter asked. "I remember being enhanced, but now I feel different. The psychic abilities are still there, but they do not feel foreign anymore." Jake realized that destroying the alien intelligence had not removed the enhancements from the research team, but had changed them somehow. Their new abilities were no longer controlled by alien programming, but by their own human consciousness. They had kept their psychic powers, but regained their humanity. "You are still enhanced," Jake explained. "But now you are enhanced humans instead of alien constructs. The technology is no longer trying to make you perfect." Dr. Carter looked at her hands, and Jake could see objects in the chamber moving slightly in response to her thoughts. "I can still read minds and manipulate matter, but it feels natural now, like these abilities were always part of me." The other research team members were having similar experiences. Their psychic powers were intact, but they were no longer thinking in perfect unison. Individual personality and creativity had returned, along with the chaos and unpredictability that made them human. Jake stood up slowly and checked his scanner readings. The alien technology throughout the ruins was shutting down now that the central intelligence had been destroyed. The enhancement process could no longer spread to other humans because there was no longer a controlling system to guide it. "What do we do now?" Dr. Carter asked. Jake thought about the implications of what had happened. The research team still had incredible psychic abilities, but they were fully human in their thinking. They represented something new in the galaxy. Enhanced beings who had not lost their essential nature in the process of gaining power. "Now we figure out how to live with what we have become," Jake said, "and we make sure this never happens to anyone else unless they choose it freely." 3 weeks later, Jake was back in the maintenance shaft of the Horizon's Edge, working on the same atmospheric processor that had been giving him trouble before they received Dr. Carter's distress signal. The repair job was exactly the same as it had been before, but somehow everything felt different now. The galaxy had changed, or maybe Jake's understanding of it had changed. The research team from Titan 7 was traveling with them to the nearest space station, where they would meet with scientists and government officials who wanted to study what had happened. Dr. Carter and her colleagues still had their psychic abilities, but they were learning to control them without losing their human nature. It was a delicate balance that required constant attention. Jake finished tightening the last bolt on the atmospheric processor and ran a diagnostic check. The oxygen levels were back to normal and the system was running smoothly. It was satisfying. Work that required no special powers beyond knowledge and patience. He was still perfectly ordinary in a galaxy full of extraordinary beings, and he was fine with that. Captain Henderson found Jake as he was climbing out of the maintenance shaft. The captain had recovered completely from his psychic injuries, but he seemed quieter and more thoughtful than before. The experience on Titan 7 had affected everyone who was there in different ways. "We just received a message from Galactic Command," Henderson said. "They want to form special investigation teams to search for other architect sites throughout the galaxy. They are asking if you would be willing to join one of these teams." Jake wiped his hands on a cleaning cloth and considered the offer. There were probably dozens or hundreds of other locations where ancient alien technology was waiting to be discovered. Most of those sites would be dangerous in ways that enhanced beings might not be able to handle safely. "What would my job be on these teams?" Jake asked. "The same thing you did on Titan 7, Henderson replied. "Be the chaos factor. Be the unpredictable human who can think of solutions that enhanced minds might miss." Jake thought about his sister Amy and what she would have said about this opportunity. She had always believed that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences when they had the right reasons to try. Protecting the galaxy from dangerous alien technology seemed like a pretty good reason. "I will think about it," Jake said. Henderson nodded and headed back toward the bridge. Jake finished putting away his tools and made his way to the observation lounge where Dr. Carter was sitting by herself looking out at the stars. She had been spending a lot of time alone since they left Titan 7 as she struggled to understand her new abilities. "How are you feeling today?" Jake asked as he sat down beside her. "Different," she replied. "The psychic abilities are becoming easier to control, but they are also becoming more complex. I can read thoughts and emotions, but I am also picking up things that I do not understand, memories that are not mine, and knowledge that I never learned." Jake had been expecting something like this. The alien technology had enhanced the research team by creating new neural pathways, but those pathways were still connected to the vast network that the architects had built throughout the galaxy. Dr. Carter and her colleagues were accessing information that had been collected over millions of years. "What kind of knowledge?" he asked. "Scientific data mostly. Mathematical formulas and engineering principles that are far beyond current human understanding, but also philosophical ideas about consciousness and the nature of existence. The architects spent millions of years studying other species, and they learned things about the universe that we are just beginning to discover." Jake realized that the research team had become something unprecedented in galactic history. They were humans with psychic abilities, who also had access to the accumulated knowledge of an ancient alien civilization. They represented a new form of consciousness that had never existed before. "Are you still human?" Jake asked. Dr. Carter smiled for the first time since they had left the research station. "I think so. I feel human even though I have abilities that humans were never supposed to have. I still get angry and frustrated and happy about the same things that mattered to me before. The enhancements changed my capabilities, but not my nature." Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The galaxy was going to change in ways that no one could predict now that humans had gained access to architect technology. Other species would want to study and possibly duplicate the enhancement process. Some would see enhanced humans as a threat, while others would view them as a new form of evolution. "What happens next?" Jake asked. "We learn to live with what we have become," Dr. Carter replied. "We figure out how to use these abilities responsibly without losing the things that make us human. And we help other people understand that being enhanced does not mean being perfect." A young crew member entered the observation lounge and approached their table. Jake recognized her as one of the new engineers who had joined the ship at their last port. She was a Zephyrian like Kythera, but much younger and less experienced with her telepathic abilities. "Excuse me," she said to Jake. "I heard about what you did on Titan 7. How you solved a problem that enhanced beings could not handle. I was wondering if you could teach me to think more like a human." Jake was surprised by the request. "Why would you want to think like a human? You already have natural psychic abilities that I will never have." "Because human minds are more flexible," she replied. "You see problems from angles that we miss because our thinking is too organized. If I could learn to be more chaotic and unpredictable, like humans are, then maybe I could become a better engineer." Jake looked at Dr. Carter, who nodded encouragingly. The idea of teaching alien beings to think like humans was strange, but it made sense in a way. Human consciousness had developed differently from other species because they had no supernatural abilities to rely on. That difference had forced them to become more creative and adaptable. "I can try to teach you," Jake said. "But thinking like a human means accepting that you will make mistakes and sometimes fail completely. It means being uncertain about things and having to figure out solutions through trial and error." The young Zephyrian's eyes lit up with interest. "That sounds exactly like what I want to learn." Jake spent the next hour explaining human problem, solving techniques to an alien who wanted to be less perfect and more chaotic. It was not a conversation he had ever expected to have, but it felt natural somehow. The galaxy was changing, and everyone was going to have to adapt in their own way. Later that evening, Jake received a message from Amy's old mining crew asking if he would be interested in designing new safety systems for deep space mining operations. It was exactly the kind of work that Amy would have wanted him to do, helping ordinary people stay safe while they did dangerous but necessary jobs. Jake composed his reply, accepting the job offer, and then sat back in his chair to look out at the stars. He was still perfectly ordinary in most ways, but he had learned something important on Titan 7. Sometimes being ordinary was exactly what the situation required. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe was a person who refused to give up even when they had no special abilities to help them succeed. He thought about Amy's favorite saying about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She had been right about that. Humans did not need supernatural powers to make a difference in the galaxy. They just needed good reasons to try and the stubborn determination to keep going when things got difficult. Jake Morrison was still just a maintenance engineer who fixed broken machines, but now he was also something else. He was proof that the most ordinary person could change the course of history when they had the right reason to act. That was a power no alien technology could ever enhance or take away.